Today we're going to talk about culture, sociology, anthropology in the United States. And sociology is the study of people in a society. And sociology looks at this idea of ordered universes, that all of us to a certain extent order our lives in a way that we can make sense of the world around us. Some things that go into this that help us order our world are religion, traditions, language, values, music, literature, art, and also our sense of community, who is us and what makes us us. And culture is a design for living. It's plans, recipes, rules for governing behavior, values, norms, sanction, technology, symbols, and language. A lot of things make up culture, but essentially culture is the creation of kind of the ideals of a society. So take a second and think about, what do you think makes up American culture? Well, people don't really agree on that question. It has really changed over time. And as you can tell from kind of the little image, there are two kind of competing theories about American culture. One is the melting pot, that all cultures are mixed in together and melted into an American culture made up of all the others. And that kind of deals with the idea of assimilation, that all of kind of the immigrant groups that make up the United States and have made up the United States kind of mix together and become American. There's also the idea of the salad bowl, where each culture kind of retains its own unique identity, and the idea of assimilation into a bigger American culture is not really important or emphasized. So we got to do a couple of definitions that are going to be important to our understanding of the United States this year. The first term is ethnocentrism. This is an interesting idea because we all do it. And this is a comparison or judgment of another culture and of people where you base kind of your conclusion on the fact that the other person is not like you and therefore they are inferior to you. This has meant a lot of different things in American history, and if you think about it, you probably judge a lot of other people based upon your own culture as well. There's two other definitions that are important for starting out. The first is the idea of social structure, the idea that people interact in roles that are in some way related to one another. Think about your family, right? There is a social structure where you have kind of the parents, children, older siblings, younger siblings, and all those roles are related to one another. So social structures are related to social groups, or just a group, which refers to a group of people who are organized in some way and are conscious. They understand that they share some common beliefs. So your family is a social group. Cristo Rey is a social group. The United States, you could say, United States citizens are one big social group as well. And so within social groups, there's something known as a reference group. And all that says is that you have a group of people from which you draw what you think of as okay or your values or norms that give order and meaning to your life. So if we think about Cristo Rey as a social structure, we have administrators such as Mr. Walkie and Ms. Garrity. We have teachers. We have people who work in the business office, the corporate work study, and you, the students. Each of those different groups of people fulfills a specific role within the greater structure of Cristo Rey. So a couple more terms that you're going to need to think about. The first is social position, and that refers to your location as social space. You guys are all students. That is one of the social positions that you have. Other social positions like teacher, mother, father, if you're a banker, an artist, an athlete, you have a place in a society where basically you have your own place. Your social role refers to the performance of the norms and expectations that are appropriate for your social position. As a teacher, my social role is to come to class with a lesson to teach you something. Your role as a student is to do homework, take tests, and to learn. So we each have a social role that we serve that goes with our social position. Not all social positions are created equal. And there's an idea, especially in the United States, of social stratification. Stratification refers to the division of a society into layers, whose occupants have unequal access to social opportunities and rewards. Thus, there's an unequal distribution of power, property, and prestige, with social positions being differently ranked according to social values, wealth, style, power, etc. And so the idea of social stratification would be the idea that there's rich and poor, that oftentimes the rich or kind of those who are politically connected will have more power in a society, and those who aren't will find themselves kind of outside of that society. Social stratification deals with social class. And class is this idea that people who have similar amounts of wealth, property, income, respect in the community are going to be kind of grouped together and treated very differently. For example, the upper class, which had versus the lower class, blue collar versus white collar, and oftentimes race becomes a part of social class as well. And Chicago is a really good example of class and stratification. We're one of the most segregated cities in the United States, and depending on which neighborhood you're in, as I'm sure you can observe, kind of things are very, very different. And so Chicago is kind of one of those great examples, and think about it a little bit in terms of an example of class and stratification. A few more terms that you're going to need to know. The first is belief. And a belief is an idea or understanding about your reality. It could be factual or valuative. For instance, God loves me is a belief. The sky is blue is a belief. It is your understanding of reality. A belief is different than a value, because a value is a belief that will guide your actions and judgment to kind of bigger end goals. And values are kind of general statements that your specific behaviors are going to kind of be based on. For instance, if you believe that lying is always wrong, then you're not going to lie, and that's a value. If you value honesty, right, you're not going to lie or cheat. If you value privacy, then you're going to expect for people to not be in your business, and you also will not want to act in a way that would invade someone else's privacy. So think about what your values are, and we're going to talk about these in class as well. Going along with beliefs and values is the idea of symbols. And a symbol is any act or national occurrence or physical thing that has a meaning for a group. A flag is a great symbol. Also, the cross or the Bible in Christianity, they mean something beyond just what they actually are. And the last term on this slide is norm. And what a norm is, kind of like normal, are your guidelines for actions, your standards of behavior, and your social rules that says what acceptable behavior is or not. You all understand the idea of norms. Think about the Cristo Rey handbook. That establishes your norms for behavior while you are at a student in Cristo Rey. So examples of symbols that can be very controversial, things like the Confederate flag or the swastika. Symbols also change meaning depending upon the meaning that people give them. For example, the swastika was actually a very old symbol meaning good luck and good fortune that goes back thousands of years. However, in the 1930s and 40s, the Nazi Party in Germany took the swastika, and now that symbol has a very different meaning for all of you. Our Lady Guadalupe is a very important symbol to both Cristo Rey and also to kind of the Catholic community in the Americas. Think about Our Lady Guadalupe. It means something beyond just the story or Mary. People can also be symbols. Barack Obama represented for a lot of people the idea of hope and change, that things would be different than they had been under his presidency. John Fitzgerald Kennedy was the first American Catholic president, and he was a symbol to a lot of Catholics that America had finally accepted them as a part of American society. Also, national myths and legends are symbols. The idea of kind of Abraham Lincoln or George Washington, they come to mean more than who they actually were. And so when we think about culture in this class, we're going to think about it as a reflection. Culture reflects society's view of itself and its values. And so when we think about our modern day culture, think about this for a second. What's the value that is represented by the popularity of Michael Jordan's sneakers? Think about it a little bit, and we'll talk about it when we come together in class. And so ultimately, culture is going to form how we think, and how we think is going to form culture. For instance, culture forms how we think. Cristo Rey tries to instill in you guys the grad at grad, a culture that we hope will form the way you experience the world. Magazines, like People magazines, form how we think about beauty or about what's important in society, and standards of expectation oftentimes unrealistic for people. Facebook has changed tremendously how we think about ourselves in relationship to the rest of the world. And culture like Chief Keef represents kind of a certain kind of conform, kind of thinking about kind of glamorizing criminality and other things as well. But also, kind of what's important in society also shapes the culture. Novels like The Great Gatsby represent kind of a very certain view that Americans had of themselves and the world around them. In the 1980s, Rocky IV represented kind of Americans' desire to win the Cold War and their fear of the Soviet Union. Dora the Explorer represented changing demographics in the United States and more openness to just simple things like learning a little bit of the Spanish language. It's really hard to say what American culture is. And so we're going to give this a little bit of thought, and we're going to talk about it in class tomorrow.